Welcome to Season 2, Episode 7 of 50 Shades of Shilamita with your hostess, Shilamita. Today I want to talk about awakening because the awakening process is not so easy. And I know that this whole season it gets to be that easy. So if you are new to awakening, and we'll get into it soon, I just want to let you know that it does get easier. But in the beginning, it's really hard because the wool is taken off of your eyes and you get to see things that you haven't seen so clearly before. So today I want to focus on my food awakening because that was a really big part of the puzzle for me, and also products. So when I was a single mom living on food stamps, I used to eat total garbage. I would eat Subway sandwiches. One time I couldn't pay my rent, so I actually ate Subway sandwiches for an entire week because they would drop off these coupon booklets, and all of my neighbors were old Russian people that didn't eat out. So I collected all of their coupons and I would have a foot long for $1.99. It was awful, but that's how I survived. And I would eat McDonald's and Burger King. Pizza was like a staple in my life. Like 5-6 days a week, I would eat pizza. I was using all kinds of garbage on my skin. I loved Bath and Body Works, right? When they had the 5 for $5 hand sanitizer sale, or around holiday time where you could buy like all these lotions and potions for really cheap. I loved giving them out as gifts. Now I wouldn't be caught dead using them. I wouldn't give it as a gift to somebody because I would feel like I was poisoning someone. So my very first awakening came with fluoride. So for those of you that don't know, fluoride is in a lot of the water we drink. Fluoride is in the toothpaste that you use when you go to the dentist. They do a fluoride treatment on you. And so that was the very first thing that I changed. And by changing my toothpaste, it changed my whole entire life. And you might be wondering, like, how is that even possible? Well, fluoride, it cavitates your pineal gland. And so the pineal gland is essentially the third eye. So it's located between your eyebrows and in the back of your brain. And if you know anything about Dr. Joe Dispenza, in his breath work, he works on activating the pineal gland. And so this pineal gland is how we see clearly. We see into other realms. We have a connection with God. Like all of our downloads and drop-ins come in through this pineal gland. And so by using a fluoride toothpaste, drinking fluoride in your water, you are actually like putting a film over your pineal gland so that you're not able to see clearly. So when you're having a conversation or you read a post and somebody's like, food dye is bad for you, you just laugh it off because you don't have the capacity in your pineal gland to actually see what's clearly in front of you. And so by changing the toothpaste, I was actually able to start changing my life. Now, the food awakening came to me when I was in acupuncture school. The first day of acupuncture school, I showed up with this huge bag of candy. I went to the dollar store. I bought, probably $5 worth of candy. I put it all in a Ziploc bag, and I thought I was being so nice and so kind. I put it on my desk, and I offered it to everybody in the class, and they looked at me like I was insane, like literally insane. And so I had no idea why, because my journey into acupuncture school was not a journey of I am healthy and want to help people be healthy in a holistic way. My journey to acupuncture school was I was on a spiritual journey. I met somebody who told me, if you're on a spiritual journey, you really should go to acupuncture school. My first week in acupuncture school, I wanted to die. I hated feet. I hated touching people's feet. And the first meridian that we learned was the spleen meridian, which starts on your toes. And we had to take our shoes off. And I was sitting in like the middle of the classroom and I started dry heaving when everybody took their shoes and socks off. And so it was a really hard process for me. And all of acupuncture school was a huge awakening for me because I just had no idea. And so it was year 2 that we started focusing on nutrition and the things that we put into our body. And The first introduction to me was this teacher, Dr. Dave Mainetti. He really changed my whole entire world. He showed up to class one morning with all of these green vegetables. I mean, stuff I've never seen before. He had like Swiss chard and kale and I can't even name you, but what he did was he decorated the teacher's desk with all of these vegetables. And he started teaching us about the chi energy of the food that we eat. And so the food that comes from the ground, vegetables, fruit, your root vegetables, all of that actually has an energetic component to it. And the quicker you eat it when it's pulled from the ground, the more energy you're feeding your body with. And so I never knew this. I didn't understand it. When you're eating something out of a package, there's no chi energy in it at all. And so we are made up of energy. The whole process of acupuncture is moving your chi energy to bring you back to homeostasis. And so I, was the class clown. I still am. I like to make a scene and I like to interrupt and all the things. And so he called me out on that day so badly. I was drinking a coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, light and sweet. I loved cream and sugar in my coffee. And I was eating a egg white and cheese on an English muffin. And so this is what I had on my desk. And so I was joking around with the teacher. And then he came over and he's like, "What are you eating?" And so I tell him and he's like, "Do you think that this is healthy for you?" And I said, "Well, it's like 2 points on Weight Watchers or whatever, because that's how I related my health. My health was how many points is it on Weight Watchers?" And so if you can imagine this, I was super overweight. By this point, I was probably around 190 pounds. At my heaviest, I was about 255. And so Weight Watchers was where I went. I did all the diets. Jenny Craig. I did some delivery service to my house. I took crack cocaine diet pills. Like, I could not lose weight for the life of me because my mentality was all wrong. I was eating stuff that was dead, right? Like an egg and cheese on an English muffin from Dunkin' Donuts. There isn't even like quality or chi in there because the egg is fake, it's microwaved, and there isn't even the nutrient value in it. And so he ripped me that day. And I can tell you that that was the last time I ever had an egg and cheese on an English muffin and a coffee that was light and sweet. I started drinking my coffee black. If I wanted a coffee, it was black. Putting milk and sugar, you're altering the taste of coffee. It's like, what is even the point? That what you're drinking is just cream and sugar or milk and sugar, right? And then I stopped eating the fake sandwiches. And so a few weeks later, we had another class with this professor. Her name is Dr. Robin. I'm blanking on her last name right now. She moved to Florida. And Dr. Robin was incredible. She taught us about kinesiology. And so at the end of class, she had asked us if we wanted assessments. And of course I did. And I went and I laid on her table and I was blown away. By pressing my fingers together and touching my body, she started giving me a laundry list of things that were wrong with me. She said, "You have PCOS, your hip is out of alignment, your knee is out of alignment, you have a slight urinary tract infection." And I was just jaw dropped because I'm like, how does this woman know any of these things? And so I immediately got off the table. I went to my computer and I Googled PCOS, and literally I had every single symptom. And no doctor had ever diagnosed me with PCOS. However, I always had really bad periods. I always was hospitalized and needed to miss school because my periods were so bad. I had a doctor put me on birth control, and that was kind of it. And even the birth control didn't help me. And so because of this, I went to her office and I started seeing her. I became a patient. And on my first visit, she tested all these vials against my body. And she was like, "Oh, you're sensitive to gluten, dairy, soy, corn, all this stuff." And I literally sat on her table and I'm like, "That's not possible." And she's like, "Why not?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't feel sick when I eat." She's like, "No, you just feel like shit all of the time. And that's your normal." And it was the truth. I just looked at her kind of like she was crazy, but at the same token, I realized like the validity of what she was saying to me, because it was true. My body hurt. I had a lot of aches and pains. I had a lot of things that were wrong with me, but I didn't associate that with the food that I ate because I didn't eat something and then get automatically sick. Her questions to me was, do you have constipation, diarrhea? And I just thought that that was normal. And she was like, no, you're supposed to have an easy bowel movement every day. And so she had told me that I needed to cut out all the things. And I looked at her and my one concern was, am I never going to be able to have pizza again? And she's like, well, not never. She's like, but for a little while, we need to cut these things out of your system so that you can, get yourself to a better place. And so I left her office, and that first week I went like 75% gluten-free. I really started being aware and conscious of what I was eating and putting into my body. I did not know how to feed myself at all because fruits and vegetables were just not on, a high priority list for me. I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't even know what my professor Dave had put on his table. I didn't even know what those vegetables were. And I was on food stamps. So to waste my money on fruits and vegetables was just not on my agenda. And so I remember that weekend was Easter weekend, and I went to my ex's family house, and his mom made the best banana cream pie. And so I'm like, I'm just going to have some banana cream pie. And so on week 2, I decided that I was going to be better and I was really going to put forth the effort. That actually is the week that I met my husband. And so the night that we met, we went to dinner, and I remember the bread basket going around, and I declined the bread basket and I ordered my food gluten-free. I didn't really worry about all the other things at first. I just needed to try to master the one. And I remember the men at the table were kind of like making fun of me, like, just eat the bread. And I was like, no, I'm not going to eat the bread. And I made it the entire week without eating gluten. And then that weekend, I went away with a girlfriend to Miami. And I remember we went to this Italian restaurant, and I thought I was being good. And I ordered pasta with vegetables, thinking that I made like the best choice. And after dinner, I was on the toilet probably for 2.5 hours. And I could not believe what was coming out of my body. And in that moment, I realized that there's probably some truth to what she said to me, and that I probably am somewhat sensitive to gluten and dairy and all the things. And so I started dating my husband, and the first night that we went out to dinner, I looked at him and I'm like, if you eat gluten in front of me, I won't go out with you again because I don't have the willpower. And so he also cut out gluten, and within those first 3 months, my husband lost 40 pounds. I did not lose as much weight. I probably lost like 20 pounds, but my whole entire body and system started changing because I was losing the inflammation. And that's what people don't understand, is that gluten, dairy, food dyes, sugars, corn, soy, all of the things that are on the allergen list, it's because they're causing inflammation in the body that the body just can't handle. And the truth is that it's not even the gluten that's the problem. It's the chemicals that they're spraying on the gluten, because none of that stuff is monitored by the government in a healthy way. They are trying to poison us through the food that we eat. And I know that for some of you, that is going to be a really shocking thing to hear. Like, what would benefit the government by poisoning us? Well, they make the most money on pharmaceuticals. And so if you're sick and you have stomach aches and you have inflammation in your body, then you're going to have aches and pains, and you're going to go to the doctor, and the doctor's going to write you a script. And then the government officials, they get kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies. And so this was a really hard pill for me to swallow, like a really hard pill for me to swallow. So if you're listening to this and you're like, this is fucking nuts, I don't believe this, the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is go to your bathroom and take a look at the toothpaste that you're using. If you're using a fluoride toothpaste, Crest, and forget about just the fluoride. If you're using a toothpaste that's blue or pink or any color, then you're not only getting fluoride, you're also getting food dye into your system. And so all of these things are blocking your pineal gland from actually seeing the truth of the information, which is causing you to have cognitive dissonance. And cognitive dissonance is when you have this awakening that maybe something is wrong, but you can't accept it because you've believed it for so long. And so the first thing I would do is switch out your toothpaste. In order for any of this to make sense, you have to clean out your pineal gland and be able to gather information in a different way and be able to accept the fact that you've been lied to for most of your life. I know that this is really hard. Believe me, I know that this is really hard, but this is going to change your entire world. Now, for most people have some kind of sensitivity to gluten and dairy. Why? Again, the gluten is because it's what they spray it with. They're spraying it with Roundup. If you've been around long enough, if you watch any kind of news, you know that Roundup has been sued for so many cases of cancer. The dairy, why is the dairy bad for you? Because if we look at a cow, cows are made to grow baby calves into big cows. Now, we are not made to grow into big cows. We are supposed to grow as human beings. So humans consuming cow milk, what is that going to do? It's going to throw off your hormone system and make your hormones think that you're baby calf needing to grow into cow. Now, what else is wrong with the dairy is that they're injecting the cows with hormones, with antibiotics so that they grow faster and that they produce more milk so that they can sell it. Again, this is another industry that is getting kickbacks to the government. And so this is why they allow for this to happen. They don't care about your health. They want you to be sick. I know this is really hard to hear, but you have to just trust me on this one. Why should you trust me? Because I've been living like this for a really long time. I have now been gluten-free for, oh my gosh, my husband and I have been together 14 and a half years, and it started week 2. So gluten-free for 14 and a half years. I didn't cut out the dairy until after I had my second son, Brady. A couple weeks after I had him, I just could not lose weight. And I read a post by a author who wrote a book called Wheat Belly. And on the post it said, if you've cut out gluten and you're not losing weight, then you have to cut out dairy. And so I decided to give it a try, and I started reading labels. And when I read the labels, I realized that I was consuming a lot of dairy and a lot of corn, that a lot of the gluten-free products that I was consuming had a lot of corn syrup, corn flour, all different kinds of corn products and corn starch. And so I cut out dairy and corn in the same day, and within 2 weeks, I was down 8 pounds. I mean, that's how fast it happens because your body is so happy. Your gut is so happy. 70% of our immune system lives in our gut. And that's what people don't understand. Like what you eat and consume into your body, it matters. And so that was a big deal for me. And I started realizing how bad the food was. And so now I am really strict about being gluten-free. I really try to be dairy-free as well. These last couple of weeks, I have been having a couple of cheats, and my body, the inflammation, it's all reflecting on what I'm eating. Now, let's go to food dyes. Food dyes, they're fun. They're, kid-friendly foods. On St. Patrick's Day, you want to go get your kid a green bagel. Like the rainbow cake is the cutest thing for your birthday. But what you don't realize is that you're poisoning your children. So the food dye came later for me. The first time I really noticed a reaction to food dye was I had bought my oldest son a cake for school, and it was like a whole hockey themed cake with, food dyes on the cupcakes and stuff. And when I delivered it to the school, they wouldn't accept it because it wasn't made in a peanut-free environment. And so I took it home, and that's where I had my acupuncture practice, was in my house at the time. And every patient that left, I handed them a cupcake. And so as they were leaving, I would lick my fingers because I was gluten-free and I was dairy-free, so I wasn't eating the cupcake. And I started getting headaches. And I realized that the headaches were coming from the food dye. And so food dyes are heavily linked to cancer and all kinds of issues and problems. They are horrible for your system. There is a reason why food dye is being banned right now. And everybody is against RFK for doing it. And he is trying to help us and save us. If you're one of those people who are like, don't ban the food dyes, I invite you to really start doing your research on this, because food dyes are hurting you. They're hurting your kids. They make kids hyperactive. It's linked to ADHD, neurological problems. Like all of the problems your kids have is from the foods that they are eating. Goldfish, Cheez-Its, all of that stuff. They might not have food dye in them anymore, but at one point they definitely did. You think that the snacks that they're eating all the time, Cheerios are full of glyphosate. Glyphosate is coming from the Roundup that they're spraying the crops with. So here, the doctor's telling you to eat this stuff. You're thinking you're making a good choice, but it's really not good for you. And so I really invite you to start taking a look at what you are consuming in your body. On the next episode, I will go over the products that we use in our home and on our bodies, just in honor of keeping these episodes short and sweet, because I know that they're much easier to consume this way. I hope that you really have enjoyed this show. If you have, please do me a favor, leave me a like or a comment, share it with a friend. This is really important. The more people that know and understand this, the more we don't feel left out and like we're singled out, right? When you have these awakenings, the awakenings are really lonely because you feel like you're the only one amongst all the people. And it's true in most cases. And that's why the more people we can wake up, the more people we can get on this bandwagon, then the awakening process doesn't have to be so lonely. And then it gets to be that easy. So thank you, my friends, for joining me today. I love you so much. I hope that you have the most beautiful day, that you are filled with miracles and magic, and I will see you soon.